A few months ago, my husband and I decided, screw it, we're getting solar panels put on our house. At the time, there was a 26% federal tax rebate that was due to drop next year and disappear after that. So even though we don't love the extra hit to our budget, we figured, you know what, it's better to just do it now. I recently mentioned this to a family member who's considering getting solar, and he pointed out that no, actually now the rebate will be 30% thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act. And, just prior to this, I had spent 4 days in the wilderness with no access to the internet, and I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about. So I Googled it and learned that, holy crap, the Democrats did something. And not just something, but something ambitious and good. And I honestly did not know how to process that feeling that I literally have not felt since, I don't know, I guess when the Supreme Court legalized same-sex marriage, maybe? Have I ever felt this feeling in relation to Congress, especially to the Senate? I don't remember. I'm sorry. All I remember is the past 6 months of Democrats claiming that they couldn't possibly have protected our right to health care in the face of Roe v. Wade being overturned. Not without a supermajority, what? But no, the Inflation Reduction Act is seriously incredible. And because I usually talk about kind of depressing stuff on this channel, I wanted to highlight some good news that you should be very excited about. Even if you aren't an American, this is good for you. It is good for the world. The reason I was so caught off guard regarding this bill passing is because I, and pretty much everyone else, assumed that Joe Manchin had effectively murdered Congress's attempt to pass a bill controlling global warming, controlling our carbon output. To catch you up, the Build Back Better Act was a $2 to $3 trillion bill that would have made a drastic impact on the United States carbon output, upgrading our clean energy standards in places like the automobile industry, investing a huge amount of money in new projects and infrastructure upgrades and green industries, and enacting environmental justice measures to bring together unions and frontline communities, fossil fuel communities, places that were hit the hardest by our reliance upon fossil fuels. If you want to know more about those issues, check out this piece that David Roberts wrote for Vox back in 2020, where he goes into detail on how environmental groups have been working with legislators at every level to get these policies on the table. Climate activists expected that this ambitious bill would not make it through Congress unscathed, but there was some optimism considering that Democrats held half of the seats in the Senate, plus the tie-breaking vote in the form of the vice president. And there was a way to push this bill through without requiring the supermajority. So filibuster wasn't even going to be an issue. Unfortunately, while 50 senators ran on a Democratic ticket and won, 2 of them are actually conservatives, Joe Manchin of West Virginia and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. So in order to get their votes, a lot of the bill would need to be tweaked to be, worse for the humans who voted for those senators and better for the corporations who bought those senators. So Congress was ready to pass a neutered version of that bill. But then late last year and early this year, Joe Manchin flounced, saying, by February that even his compromise deal was dead. And without his vote, it was dead, and liberal and progressives across the country cursed Joe Manchin's name, vowed to vote the secret Republican out in 2024. And that's honestly the last I thought of all this until a few weeks ago. For reasons that remain murky, but possibly related to the aforementioned promise to vote him out of office, Manchin had a change of heart. Over the past few months, Charles Schumer has been working secretly with Manchin to surprise the world with a revamped Build Back Better, titled the Inflation Reduction Act. And despite the fact that Manchin had a hand in it, and despite the fact that it's not perfect by any means, this bill is incredible. In fact, it's the largest climate change bill ever passed in the United States, and as written, it will surely get us to our ambitious goal of reducing carbon emissions by at least 40% by 2030 relative to our carbon output in 2005. And independent evaluators suggest that it could actually do even more than that. Like, there are certain factors we just can't put into models, like what new projects might spring up to be funded. And passing such a landmark bill also might make it more likely for similar bills to add on to it later, maybe putting back in a lot of the things that got dropped from the original bill. And because this bill is going to have such a direct positive impact on so many Americans, there's a chance that it might even win over new constituents for the Democrats, people who want to see more of this type of action and who see that every single Republican voted against what is unquestionably a positive bill for the lives of Americans, all Americans, except for maybe, I guess, like oil and gas and big pharma executives. Here is a brief overview of some of the things in this bill that I'm really excited about. And this is just the climate stuff. There's a lot of other stuff like improvements to our healthcare, which are great, but I'm just going to focus on the climate stuff. Like, okay, yes, I love the solar rebate program, which is now 30% for systems installed now through 2032. You know, installing the panels plus a battery plus upgrading our mid-century home's electrical system, it's been really expensive. And there's simply no way we could have afforded it without that rebate and a ridiculously good solar-specific loan program that offers help with securing that rebate and giving us a loan at only 3% interest. It was huge. And the new bill now includes rebates on some of those other upgrades that we had to do. So it's awesome. It's such a great deal that now there's a chance we can actually move on to our next big home improvement project faster, which is replacing our old gas furnace with a heat pump. Oh, and guess what? The new bill also includes rebates of up to $8,000 for heat pumps. Sweet. Homeowners can also get rebates for retrofits that increase their home's energy efficiency, like installing insulation. And it's not just personal benefits for individual homeowners. The bill includes tax credits that will keep nuclear plants operational, which has been controversial in the past as some climate activists don't understand the huge benefit nuclear plants offer in getting us free of fossil fuels. There are also tax credits for businesses to manufacture clean energy technology here in the United States. There's $20 billion for green banks, which are purpose-driven institutions that invest in clean energy solutions with the primary goal of fighting climate change while making, though not necessarily maximizing, profits. There's a fund just for switching the post office over to zero-emission trucks, which is pretty cool. There's more money for Superfund to clean up areas where corporations have damaged the environment. There are new incentives and caps on methane emissions. And to get back to things that affect me personally, there's $5 billion for forest management and reducing wildfire risk. So that's huge for people like me who live in California in high wildfire risk zones. California can only do so much. The vast majority of our forests are on federal land, and we need the federal government to make this a priority. The bill is not perfect, and you will hear a lot of people nitpicking it. They are not wrong. Compared to the previous bill, we're missing a good deal of that environmental justice stuff. We lost the e-bike rebate, and Manchin made the electric car rebates almost completely useless by insisting that they only apply to a handful of cars that have been mostly made of materials within North America. It's a very small number of cars that actually qualify for this. And the ickiest part of the bill is where Manchin insisted on land lease concessions for the fossil fuel industry. But Overall, the rest of the bill more than makes up for these problems, and I've seen a few progressive politicians vow to reverse those poison pill sections of the bill. Complaining about this stuff is important because we can't rest on our laurels after getting this legendary bill passed. We have to use it to push for more and more. Clearly, the things that moderates have been telling us are too extreme or that we can never have without Republican buy-in are absolutely within our reach. 50% carbon reduction is within reach. Zero carbon is within reach. Abortion rights are within reach. Yeah, sorry. I have to throw that in again. If this is just proof that if our politicians want to get it done, they can get it done. So while it's important, and I agree, to continue to push for more, I also think it's important to pause for a minute and just be happy. Like, it was almost exactly 1 year ago that the IPCC report came out and I had to climb into bed to make a video about it. Even though I didn't want you guys to think things were hopeless, it definitely felt hopeless even to me at the time. How can we possibly take such drastic action with time running out and our politicians just not seeming to care? Well, it doesn't feel that hopeless anymore. You know, climate activists and scientists have been working so hard behind the scenes to pressure our representatives into doing something huge and incredible and inspiring, and they did it. A few months ago, I mentioned I read the book Ministry for the Future, which is a super inspiring book about the kinds of actions that the world could take if we wanted to turn things around for climate change. And this bill includes several of the things that Kim Stanley Robinson discusses. I highly recommend you read it, especially if you learn best through narratives. But seeing our actual representatives in the real world doing some of the things that I just read about in this inspiring utopian novel is so outrageously cool. I can't overstate how much this bill's passage has just filled me with joy. And I'm going to end by saying the same thing that I would have said had this been a horrible disaster. Please let your representatives know what you think about all this. You know, if your representative is a Democrat, thank them. Tell them that you love that they took this decisive action and you want to see more. If they're a Republican, all of whom voted against this bill, tell them you're voting them out the first chance that you can get. If they're Joe Manchin or Kyrsten Sinema, tell them, hey, thanks, but also we're voting you out in the next election and we're replacing you with a progressive.